The views and opinions expressed on all radio shows broadcast on Tom's Radio Toronto are entirely those of the hosts, guests, and callers who are entirely responsible for all show content and do not in any way reflect the opinions of Tom's Radio Toronto or its staff. These broadcasts are presented and made public as entertainment and general information only, in the hope that they will be entertaining and informative to listeners. They are not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or mitigate in any way any disease or condition, or to promote any specific lifestyle, belief, religion, political affiliation, or other personal practice, nor is the information presented necessarily accurate or verifiable.
Good afternoon, Wisdom fans. This is my apology for the lengthy and obnoxious disclaimer you just endured. We're working on an abbreviated version. It goes something like this. I'm sorry. Please don't sue. I didn't say it. The guy on the other show said it. How dare you accuse me? You want to go to court? Go ahead. Make my day. You feeling lucky, punk? Are ya? Are ya? Or you can simply endure the painful disclaimer. Please consider the painful disclaimer at the beginning of the show. It's like the COVID face mask of YouTube. It's a sign of the times. We all hate the show's disclaimer, and we also hate the COVID mask, which I have. We both have it and not use it. And I don't think we need to use it in the show. But at any rate, we all hate the show's disclaimer. We also hate the COVID mask, or sometimes known as a face diaper. I apologize for making you endure the YouTube disclaimer. Please note it is the lesser burden to bear in the times we live in. I appreciate your wise choice of watching our show, and I am appreciative of your patience as well. Our secret subterranean address at the Wisdom Show in the immense scroll-laden Wisdom Cave is, let me get my act together, and don't tell anyone, we're located at 3768 Bathurst Street, Suite 308, North York, Toronto, Ontario, Canada. You can like and subscribe at worldwideweb.tomsradio.com. If you want to participate in our discussion, please call 416-900-5864. Now, the purpose of our show is very selfish to me. I'm the number one on the list. The purpose of the show is to help me become a bit more wise. We are helping you, our viewer, to become a bit more wise also. Number 3, we are challenging the assumption that the Bible is an outdated, if not evil book. People say, oh, it's got slavery in it. It has to be a bad book. So we're challenging that by showing a lengthy example. We are teaching biblical literacy. We are teaching text-based analysis, which is a lot harder to do. How can I put it? It's almost impossible. What we do in Hebrew, what we do in English about a Hebrew text, you can't really do in English. It doesn't, to my knowledge, you don't have a text that works this way. Number 6, we are presenting a challenge. I suggest this book is the greatest book in the world. So great that nothing in any language comes close to it for multiple meaning in the Hebrew wordplay, ability to motivate one to improve their personal character, and provide a compelling storyline. That's a big claim and a big challenge I'm making, but hear out the evidence. Once a week, we're going to give it a shot. Number 7, we are teaching the world about depth and primacy of the Hebrew language. Number 8, we are challenging the veracity of the foolish and deceitful idea of the boycott, divestment, and sanctions, BDS, anti-Zionist fraudsters. And as a counterbalance, we show our viewers the very good stuff that has come out of Jerusalem and continues to come out to this day. If you want honesty over diplomacy, then maybe the obnoxious disclaimer isn't such a bad thing after all. We are one of the sources for evidence that it is better to be wise than woke. Tell your friends that. You want to be a bit wiser? hit the subscribe button. Want your spouse, your kids, your friends, your colleagues, your boss, and humanity writ large to be a bit wiser? Hit the share button. We're all about subscribe and share. At The Wisdom Show, we share wisdom. Now today, I am happy to recall now a third-time champion guest presenter of The Wisdom Show. Ladies and gentlemen, I hope he'll tell you a bit about himself. To present chapter 9 and more in the book of Proverbs, please welcome my guest, Gerald Landau.
Thank you, Bruce. It's a pleasure to be back, and I know I had the first two shows, so I know things have changed, have firmed up since then. We're now on chapter 9 of Proverbs. Who am I? I work at IBM. I'm also a translator of Jewish history and from Hebrew and Yiddish into English, a genealogist, a studier of the Bible and biblical texts, many other topics as well. So I'm happy to share with you. We're going to go through today chapter 9 of the book of Proverbs, which won't take that long. It's rather short. And then, as I did on my last appearance, we're going to go to Pirkei Avot, which is the chapters of the Father, a Mishnaic tractate, and we're going to learn a different section of it, what I call the categorization of the fours. So we'll put that off for a little while.
I would like to answer, what is the Mishnah? You referred to it, and
yes.
I think it needs a good definition.
The Mishnah was written around the 2nd century of the Common Era. It was the rabbinical compilation of the oral tradition of Jewish law based on the Torah, based on the Pentateuch, on the Torah that was given to the Jewish people. It really consolidates the law. It's the first written legal document of Jewish law. However, Pirkei Avot, the section we're dealing with, is the one section of the Mishnah that does not focus on law, but rather on proper moral behavior. So really, the way I look at it, it's a complement to the book of Proverbs in some ways. It goes hand in hand. We learn wisdom from it. Some of the wisdom is unique to the Jewish people. Much of it is of general interest.
Would we be belittling the book, the Pirkei Avot, the Ethics of Our Fathers, if we said it's a simpler, more concise version? Would it be belittling one if we described Pirkei Avot as more brief?
I would think they're different. It is a little more brief, but in some ways it can be more deep. There's sections of it which aren't really wisdom-type literature, but it's hard to categorize. By the way, in terms of whether it's applicable for the general audience, usually we don't really spread the Mishnah around. However, I brought with me one of my versions of Pirkei Avot at home. There's actually about 70, 80 different translations. I mentioned on my last
on
Pirkei Avot. On the chapters of the Fathers. There's lots. It's open to commentary. This one was written in 1980 by my favorite rabbi, who we've lost recently, and I mentioned last time, Rabbi Bulka. This is his commentary on chapters of the Fathers, so I have his book here today with me. With that, I think we should turn to Proverbs, should we not, Bruce?
I am there with bated breath.
And chapter 9 is the conclusion of a section of Proverbs. The first 9 chapters talk about wisdom and folly, and that was the major theme. And in this chapter, wisdom and folly are both sending their invitations to the onlookers to try to entice them. It's a personification, and it's going to be fascinating. Lots of metaphor here. When we get to chapter 10, it starts dealing with King Solomon's adages, just general statements of wisdom, but it's no longer focusing on what wisdom and folly is.
I should interject. When I learned this 40 years ago, in my early 20s, the presenter, and it was his own invention, he said, the first third of the book is, you're a jerk and you're not listening. And then he goes on, the second third is, okay, now you're listening, but you're still a jerk. And the third is, you're no longer a jerk, congratulations, you're listening, now let me tell you what life's all about.
Okay, that's an interesting way of looking at it. It may be a little like,
it's rough.
We may want to use a little more refined language sometimes. That's one of the things of wisdom, and we all fail here. Do we call people a jerk, or do we say maybe it's? We'll see one of the words here, which maybe we can think of the word jerk. But we'll get there. I'll ask for your opinions on it. So let's
I'm
start.
excited to learn this.
Let's
the
start
biblical
with
word for
chapter
sure.
9. Wisdom. Now it opens with wisdom, and then it's going to end with folly. So wisdom has built her house. It's the personification of it in the female. Wisdom has built her house. She hewed out her 7 pillars. What does it mean, 7 pillars? Well, especially in old times, if you built a big structure, there were pillars there. 4 around and a few in the middle. So that's what the 7 pillars is referring to. So wisdom built her house.
Hold on.
Oh,
Do you have another commentary there? But there's
About
a whole
pillars,
hold on.
indicative of a mansion built around a courtyard, the structure being supported by 3 pillars on each side and one in the center, on the third side facing the open space, which was the entrance. Not bad.
There's a big commentary on
Let's
that
hear-
refers
let's hear.
to the 7 days of creation, and it's an allusion. And he also does allusion to the 5 books of Moses. He stretches it.
Okay.
I don't want to get technical how he stretches the 5 into 7, but I find that a much more juicy
I see that
interpretation.
here. As you may know about me in general, I like to study the Bible a bit at least as a starting point literalist. Of course, then it's open to interpretation. I have 2 books here. This is an old-fashioned translation, and it deals with the literal. This is a more modern one, which will deal with, doesn't like the literal and deal more with metaphor. And by the way, if eventually you want to deal with that, we'll learn Song of Songs. Boy, there we can
I'm a little
we can go into literal versus non-literal there and see what happens.
We'll get
more.
arrested.
Well, maybe. Okay, let's move on. She's prepared her meat, she's mingled her wine, and she's also furnished her table. So this is a fascinating metaphor in that wisdom is setting the table and providing a good meal. The good meal here means good spiritual meal because we relate to food. Food is spiritual sustenance, but it's talking about it's not meant to be taken literally here. It's talking about spiritual sustenance. We have that type of metaphor in other places. In particular, as we'll have in the next few weeks in our tradition, when we talk about the sukkah, the tabernacle, where we eat our meals, but at the end of it we say we hope that we'll eventually have the final meal in the world to come. And that meal traditionally consists of Leviathan and Behemoth, the big beasts.
Whatever that is.
Whatever that is, but it's meant to be taken as spiritual sustenance. It's just a metaphor because we relate to food and drink.
When I'm going through this, anything I see in quotes religious, and how can I put it? With respect to the sages, it's easy to default to it's about learning Torah and doing religious commandments. It's about spirituality. I'm looking for the metaphors,
Yep.
which I think are clashes. You're avoiding them, and I'm hunting for them.
Well, here I couldn't avoid it because in this one it's obvious, and even this tradition, even this more literal commentary says this can't be literal. It's not. The wisdom isn't preparing a feast with steaks and with beer. It's preparing spiritual sustenance. That's
I
clear.
may be thinking in a contradiction. I'm looking for the literal, but I don't want to go to the literal.
Okay.
I
fair
may
enough.
be a living contradiction. It took me 9 chapters to see
Okay.
that. Okay.
Anyway, we'll continue. She sent forth her maidens. She calls upon the highest places of the city. The maidens here are the people who go out in the olden days, as it happens nowadays too, to send out the invitations. So she sent out her invitations. Now we're going to find it interesting here. Whoever is, it says, thoughtless, let him come here. Let them come here.
Is that peace come?
And for the person lacking understanding, she says to him. So wisdom is now speaking to the person of thoughtlessness. This translation says to the simpleton. The word is petty in Hebrew.
Oh, that's the breadhead.
And this is the word that I was going to say comes in many different translations. I've often thought that it's the fool.
Yeah.
But there's 2 types of fools. There's a fool who doesn't care. And here it's the simpleton or the thoughtless person who does care but just hasn't yet been educated. There's a very big difference between the 2. So the word we'll have in the book of Psalms, it says the Torah of God is pure, it gives wise to the petty. That's to the simpleton, to the person who...
It's even petty in Hebrew.
It's what it
You
is.
see that?
Yes.
I think that's just a coincidence.
And what does your translation say?
Well, he says it says simpleton, but I'm big
Simpleton's
on.
gone.
This is I don't know if it's correct. Pita as bread makes this guy a dough brain, a breadhead.
Fair enough, but
I
I
don't
think
know.
I think that's just a modern.
That's what you get when I'm writing the
yeah,
commentary.
Okay. So come, eat my bread, and drink the wine which I've mingled, which means come, eat and drink from what I prepared. Take my wisdom.
You know what the mingling is? Last year I was in Israel. We went to sort of an archaeological thing. Wine, the way it's cured's the wrong word. It's like a sap. Then when they get it home, they add the water.
Old-fashioned wine was like that. It had to be diluted.
Recently, old-fashioned, like in a couple generations ago.
As a matter of fact, some on Friday night or on festivals, when we make kiddush, some people put a few drops of water in there in reminiscence of the mingling of
Isn't
wine.
that fascinating?
Yeah.
Okay.
Forsake all thoughtlessness and live, and walk in the ways of understanding. So here's wisdom is inviting the uneducated, let me call that person, the uneducated person to come and learn. Now it's going to change track a bit. Wisdom just gave its invitation. Now it's going to say, but there's some people who you can't teach. He that corrects a scorner will cause shame for himself, and he that reproves a wicked man, it becomes unto him like a blot. And this is when you try to reprove or tell off somebody who's wicked, they're going to say, and what about you? You have your own pocket full of problems. So be careful when telling off the wicked. So it's what it's saying here.
You see that in the news today.
You do.
With scandalous, with Governor Cuomo, with President Biden, people are calling him vicious things, not undeservedly, but that's what's going on.
My guess
now.
is in Canada in the next 4 weeks we'll be hearing our fair share of such things too on all sides. That election campaigns specialize in this, don't they? Specialize in this. But it's saying be careful when you correct a person who is a cynic, I think is even a better word. A lates is the word here in Hebrew. Lates means somebody who's...
A clown.
It could be a clown, but it's not, some people are funny. Other people are cynical about everything.
Or a comedian. A late son is a comedian?
It is a comedian, but there's a funny comedian and there's a cynical comedian who's just going to mock everything. So be careful. You correct them, it's going to come and hit you in the face. Reprove not a scorner, because he might hate you. But it's saying, do reprove a wise man, and he will love you. It's good to hear. It's good to hear reproof, a wise person. And we all fail at this. I do too. Nobody likes to be reproved. We get told off for mistakes at work, at home. It's hard, but apparently we're all supposed to learn from our mistakes. And if it's done properly, that's how we grow.
I learned this years ago. If I tell you something that I do, it's not that I learned it. If you say thank you when someone's rebuking you, giving you help, that reminds them of their place and reminds yourself of your place. To say if it's particularly if someone's giving you angrily, bawling out like a bad boss, and the other phrase to add that I learned in this contest was at the conclusion, say, is there anything else?
You also have to know how to reprove. The
it's an art
reprover
form.
has to do it properly. Because if the reprover does it properly, if you're trying to correct and make things better, it works. But if you start yelling and castigating, it's going to fail most of the time. Give to a wise man, and he will be yet wiser. Teach a righteous man, and he will increase in learning. Now, the fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom. Here we had this theme quite a number of times in the first chapters, that in order to have true wisdom, there's something that's supernatural. We can't just rely on our human intellect. There's something above that. The fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom, and the knowledge of the All-Holy is understanding. So it's putting a religious aspect here, that there's something supernatural. I'm not saying which religion, this is religiously neutral in terms of it's not saying the Jewish God, the Christian God, the Muslim God, but we all believe in some supernatural. If without the supernatural, the wisdom is going to be relative.
Are you saying supernatural on fear of Hashem?
Of the Lord? Yeah, of God. It's talking about God.
I don't see that. I don't see supernatural at all. I see that as something within the realm of a person's behavior and psychology and belief structure. I don't see supernatural.
It is, but I'm talking about the deity itself. The God.
Okay,
the God.
Fine.
The God is supernatural. Okay. Of course, the relationship to it is based on our experience and understanding. For by me here is wisdom. For by me your days will be multiplied, and the years of your life will be increased. We had this theme many times as well. Yeah. If you live a smart, clean, intelligent life, there's no guarantee that you're going to live long, but you're going to take away your chances of dying of many vices. Vices kill. You spend your time indulging in food, drink, speeding at speeding at 200 miles an hour, not taking COVID seriously, you're increasing your chances of leaving this place a little earlier than otherwise. So that's what it's saying. Through wisdom, your days will be multiplied and your years will be increased. If you're wise...
I read somewhere where it's used, if I remember correctly, days refers to quality, years refers to length.
That's an interesting way of looking at it. I'm just going to see if it doesn't say that here, but yes, that's a valid commentary. If you are wise, you're wise for yourself, but if you're scorner, you alone shall bear it. That's telling you you're responsible. You want to act as an idiot, a fool, go ahead. You're nobody to blame but yourself.
You get what you pay for.
You want to be wise, it's going to benefit you. Meaning this is telling you take responsibility for your life. It's up to you. You can't just dump it on everybody else on the world. You can't blame your problems in life on the world either. Yes, we all have our challenges, but we all have to do our best with them. And blaming everybody else for one's problems is not going to result in a better situation.
Do you think this comes out nationally as well as individually? And I'm asking you a loaded question.
100%. There's nations that dump their problems on others. Say it's because we're in a bad part of the world. What can we do? We're poor. We're oppressed, and therefore you can't. Let me give you an example. I know it's a political one, and I know things are politically charged.
Yeah.
Gaza.
Yeah.
They were given independence.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying I don't want to get into politics here.
Yeah.
They could have. It's a tiny area, but there's other tiny. They could have built a Singapore and a Dubai.
Yeah.
They have a beautiful lakeshore, not lakeshore. On the sea.
Oceanfront property.
They could have. They could have built beautiful oceanfront things and charged the Israelis hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of shekels and made an economy. Instead, it's all the occupation. It's all the Israelis' fault, and there's one industry going on there, and it's. I'm not talking about Palestine in general. I'm talking in particular Hamas-run Gaza. Their big industry is figuring out how to make incendiary balloons and bombs. They could have taken responsibility, and that place could have been turned into a beautiful Singapore or Dubai instead of what they did. So So again, that maybe I was a little too political here, but that's an example.
Look, I haven't offered any disagreement.
Okay, and I hope I didn't offend anybody. And again, I would hope that places like that learn how to make the best of things.
Yeah, the history isn't finished.
Their seashore is world class. It could be, and their fishing industry is world class. There's a lot that they could do. Anyway, now we've finished with wisdom. Now we're towards the end, but there's about 6 verses left, and we're going to hear the opposite invitation now. The woman of folly is riotous. She is thoughtlessness and knows nothing. It uses this word petty again. She's thoughtless, she knows nothing, but she's riotous. She's a lot of fun. That's basically it's a riotous. It's a riot. The woman of folly. It's using the female metaphor here again, and she sits at the door of her house on a seat of high places of the city. She's there. She's ready to. She's open for business. Open for business.
You get the
right?
contrast to the preceding paragraph. The other one, the wise woman sends out her maidens to deliver the invitation.
I didn't get that, but that's right. She's got her door open. The wise man was a little more modest. There's something to be said about discreetness.
Yeah.
To call to them that pass by who go right on their way. So the people are passing by. She said, come and enjoy what we got here. And here we have a repeat of a verse from the wisdom invitation. Whoever is thoughtless, let him turn hither. And and he that lacks understanding, she says to him. So she's inviting the person who's thoughtless, again, this petty, this fool. However, the difference is in interpretation. The fool or the petty from the previous one is a person who was uneducated yet and wants to become wise. Here, the petty is, I think the fool would be a better word. It's the one who wants to just enjoy life, without meaning. There's nothing wrong with enjoying life.
Here he has who lacks self-disciplining heart.
It is, yes, but you see, look at verse 4 and verse 16. I'm saying this to our audience as well. If you open up your Bibles, it's good to open up your Bibles. Verse 4 and verse 16 in Hebrew are word for word exactly the same. One is from the invitation to wisdom, one is from the invitation to folly. It's just a matter of the context. Exactly word for word the same. And in my English, they're also word for word the same.
So a question that in the Passover, I don't know how to translate Haggadah, the Passover script,
Yes.
all the halachmania, is it the same words?
No, there is no, what word? Petty?
Halachma, all those who are hungry come and eat.
Oh, no, yeah, this is it's an invitation as well. It's an invitation. And then it says, all who are needy come and enjoy Passover. That means come and enjoy the spiritual. So there's a physical and spiritual invitation there. So there may be an analogy.
Okay, but it's not parallel in the
It's
words.
not 100%. No, the
Okay,
words are
fine.
not parallel.
Okay.
Stolen waters are sweet, and the bread is eaten in secret is pleasant. Yeah, it's nice to enjoy things that you steal. That's a word that I know. This is a common adage here. Yeah, that's what she's
it's
saying.
super- ladies and gentlemen,
Stolen
that's the
waters
title
are
of this
sweet.
episode.
Yes, indeed. And the bread eaten in secret is pleasant.
What's
but
the difference, by the way?
Nothing. It's analogous. One is when you steal something and you want to enjoy it, you're probably going to have to go hide somewhere so you don't be caught.
It compares it. My commentary, Malbim, compares it to the meat and wine that we
Okay.
previously mentioned.
Fair enough. We got one more verse, and then I guess we'll take a break before we switch track. But he knows not that the shades are there and that the guests are in the depths of the netherworld. That means with all this lovely invitation to folly, it's going to send you down to the other place, as they say. That the shades, that's the demons from the netherworld, they're there. It's not going to do it. This is I believe the narrator talking at the invitation. Go ahead and accept your invitation, but that's what's going to happen. You're going to end up in the what's it called, the netherworld, and the what other words do we have for that? Hades.
Right.
You'll end the purgatory.
Oh,
You'll
yeah.
end up in purgatory. You can call it whatever you want, but that's what's it's saying. That's what's going to happen, and that's how this chapter ends. And that's how the invitation ends.
Is it holding back from whatever the Hebrew is for hell?
It's using the word Sheol. We don't have a good word for hell in Hebrew, which is
How
good
simple is
because Gehinnom is the word we use for hell. Gehinnom really is a valley outside Jerusalem where they used to engage in Moloch worship, the valley of Hinnom. The other word, Sheol, is the netherworld. It's not exactly hell. Don't forget, heaven and hell are concepts that there's hints in the Bible. They were further developed and solidified later on. We don't believe in a literal hell. As a matter of fact, I'll end this section with telling you what an interesting Jewish statement on what heaven and hell are. And somebody went to heaven and somebody went to hell. In heaven, they saw there were a bunch of people who were. There was a beautiful feast, beautiful food, but everybody had short arms, and of course they couldn't reach the food.
Oh, man.
In hell, beautiful feast, beautiful food, everybody had short arms, they couldn't reach the food. What's the difference? In heaven, they couldn't reach the food, but their short arms could reach each other's mouth. They were helping each other. In hell, they couldn't figure that out. They were all sitting there like this.
Unbelievable.
There, but that's an interesting metaphor. So we don't, heaven and hell, what they are, we don't know, but it's saying you're going to end up in the wrong place is, in the wrong place. They call it the other place. Okay, I think it's a good time to take a break now. Yep. And then we'll get to ethics of the Father.
Taking my job.
Well, because we finished the chapter. That's why
Okay.
we finished the chapter, so we're switching channels.
Take us to our fine sponsors.
Okay.
Our company is committed to providing truthful, honest, competent, and result-oriented service through advising and representing our clients in Canada and overseas in a wide range of immigration matters. We focus on providing support, building dependable relationships, and promoting success. We are dedicated to understanding what results you want and to helping you understand what actions we can take on your behalf.
Ladies and gentlemen, we're back to the Wisdom Show. We just finished the first third of the book of Proverbs, and now we're availing ourselves of Gerald's expertise on a different book of wisdom. Ladies and gentlemen, please enjoy Gerald's commentary.
Okay, again, as I said a few weeks ago, Pirkei Avot, which is Chapters of the Fathers, is a Mishnaic tractate, which we, throughout the summer, on the Sabbath afternoons, study. So there's 4 cycles of it, actually. We start from Passover and we end on the week before Rosh Hashanah. Well, if anybody knows, Rosh Hashanah is in a few days, so we're on the last cycle. The last cycle, of course, that was quick, so we do 2 chapters a week. So we're at chapter 5 and 6 for this week. So it just so happens I've chosen something from those chapters. But that wasn't the reason I chose it. You know, one is allowed to study this any other time of the year as well. It's just we traditionally study it during the summer. But this chapter has some interesting concepts based on 4 and categorizations. If you can picture, I wish I had a diagram here, a quadrant, like a square with 4 sections. And, you know, when you're trying to analyze something logically, and sometimes 2 of the sections are obvious and the other 2 are in the middle. So we'll see what that means as we go on. So I'm actually going to start right away and read it, and we'll see if any of this is debatable. There's 4 character types among people, and it's going to talk about how people think about possessions. This is talking about property. Somebody who says, "What's mine is mine, and what's yours is yours," meaning I get to keep my stuff, you get to keep your stuff. That's an intermediate type of character. It's an average character. But others say that is the character of Sodom. We know Sodom in the Bible, people were pretty bad. But what's wrong with saying this? I've got private property. What's mine is mine, what's yours is yours. But I think the bad twist here is that in order to run a society, you've got to have some interaction. You've got to be willing to do some sharing. If you lock yourself off, you don't want to take something from anybody else, but you also don't want to give to anything else. You're just all living in your own place, and that's what it's saying it's bad about it. So there's a debate if this is an average character, because yes, we're all acknowledging we have our property, or is it a rather dismal characteristic of Sodom? Let's move on, and then we can talk about the 4 different ones. One who says, "What's mine is yours, and what's yours is mine." Hey, that's different. You know, that means everything is everybody's. That is an ignoramus. Now, I'll say it doesn't sound so bad because, you know, why don't we share everything? Philosophy. It is. I don't need my problem. Let's all be everything. However, this is socialism to the extreme, communism, I think, right? Yeah, that's really what it is. Everything is everybody's. It takes away private initiative. And I think we all know, with very, very few exceptions, any experiment of living this type of lifestyle on a grand scale has failed. Just the Eastern Bloc is the best example. It just doesn't work. So that's what it's saying. It's foolish. It's we were talking about the petty before. It may mean well, because I think, Bruce, you mentioned, you kind of hinted there's maybe a good meaning. You know, people mean well. What's mine is yours, everything. It sounds so nice, doesn't it?
The road to hell is paved with?
With good intentions. Mm-hmm. Now let's go on then. One who says what's mine is yours and what's yours is a pious person. That doesn't mean he doesn't need what he needs, but he's willing to share. He doesn't necessarily, he's not looking to get gifts from anybody, but he's willing to give of his property, of his bounty to other people. What's mine is yours and what's yours is yours. That's a pious person.
To be critical, is he a doormat? And you wouldn't recommend this posture?
I wouldn't recommend it to the extreme, because if you give everything away that you own, well, you're going to kill your own family. That's what's going to happen. But it's just saying the attitude in general, you're willing to share with everybody else, but you're not necessarily looking to take from anybody else. That's a pious attitude. Now, of course, if everybody is overly pious, society doesn't work too well. I think that's what you were hinting at. Yeah. But one who says, what's yours is mine and mine is mine, that means I got what I got, but I'm going to steal what you got. Well, that's a wicked person. Yeah. So again, we have the 2 extremes. What's mine is yours and yours is yours, and what's yours is mine and mine is mine. Those are the extremes. And then we have the 2 middle ground ones. One of them is mine and yours is yours, and the other one was mine is yours and yours is mine, which we said is really the communist attitude. Where to be? It's obviously taking the point here that's you should the private properties to be respected. However, you should be willing to share, and we have to have some interaction in society also. But we can't have a free for all. So that's how this dealt with property.
You need the diagram.
A diagram would
need
work
the
well
diagram.
for these. Let's look
Yeah.
at the next one is more controversial because the middle ground is going to be not obvious at all. And as a matter of fact, there's differences of opinion of what the text actually says.
Do we call this paragraph or chap? What do we?
We call it a Mishnah in Hebrew. The actual
So-
I would call it a section. It's a paragraph. That's a good
Paragraph
way.
is probably the
It's more of a minute, like a note. It's a it's a
Yeah.
notation. We're at
Okay.
number 14. There are 4 types of disposition. That's disposition of people. If somebody, and it's talking about anger here, we all suffer from that to some degree or another. Easy to provoke and easy to pacify, the loss disappears with the gain. So somebody who gets angry easily, but very quickly it passes, he has a loss because he gets angry easy, but the gain is better because he doesn't stay angry. Difficult to provoke and difficult to pacify, the gain disappears with that person's loss. It's hard to make an angry, but when he gets angry, boy, he stays that way for days, weeks, sometimes years. So the question is,
what I imagine an
this is
alcoholic.
debatable, and some versions have this opposite. Because the first person who's easy to provoke and easy to pacify, his problem is he may be angry all the time. He's going to be angry like 10 times a day. He's a hot-headed, right? Hot-headed, he flies off the handle, but he quickly calms down. Which one is worse? It's hard to say.
Why do you think the first one is?
Because
Why-
he's angry a lot of the time. The second one doesn't get angry very often, very rarely. But when he does, boy,
So
is he
why
angry.
wouldn't you think the first one's the worst guy?
Because it blows off right away. Doesn't stay that way. He's hot-headed. That's what I'm saying, Bruce. It's this one is open to debate, which is
Okay.
worse. Our version says the one who's easy to provoke and easy to pacify is the one who's better. But better's loss disappears with the gain. Both are, both of these have a loss and both have a gain. The next two are extremely obvious, far more obvious than the last one. If somebody's difficult to provoke and easy to pacify, hard to make him angry, but when he's angry, he'll blow over quickly. That's obviously a pious person. That one is got the best character. He rarely gets angry, and when he does, it's finished. But then here's the hard one. Somebody who's easy to provoke and difficult to pacify, and I suspect we can all picture people like that. He gets angry all the time, and he stays angry. Then this is a wicked person. So here, as you can see, the wicked and the pious person are obvious. It's the other two. The one where somebody gets angry easily but is pacified easily, or where one gets rarely angry. It's hard to make him angry, but he stays angry when he's angry. Those ones, it's debatable which is better, which is worse, and one could debate. And you know what? We can debate it, Bruce. We won't reach a conclusion.
Right.
And neither do our commentaries reach a conclusion, and that's why there's different versions.
So
Okay,
let me-
please.
It's an obnoxious question. The obviousness of this, although it's formulated in an elegant manner, where's the depth in this?
That's
And maybe that it's formulated in an elegant manner.
the interesting thing about this is this doesn't always need depth. When you're learning morality, you don't need to analyze it in a deep academic basis, although some people do that. You want to learn a lesson from here. Basically, we want to learn a lesson from life about anger and how to deal with anger and how to analyze people who are prone to anger. Well, look, even a psychologist could use this. Somebody who is dealing with somebody who has an anger problem. There's two different. It pointed out to two different types of anger problems, right? Somebody flies off the handle all the time, or somebody bears a grudge forever. Two different types of problems, which it pointed out here. So there's no, it's not like this is not the type of thing which you're going to analyze endlessly, but it's the type of thing to learn a lesson from, and I think that's what's important.
Okay.
That's my take here. Now there's 4 types of students. And this is interesting. We're all students here, so let's all figure out which type we might be.
Even when you're not a student, you're a student.
Quick to learn and quick to forget. So he learns quickly, but the next day he forgot what he learned. The gain disappears with the loss. Slow to understand, but slow to forget, the loss disappears with the gain. These were the 2 middle ground ones.
Yeah.
Again, unlike the anger one, these are not controversial. I think we can all agree here, and there's no different versions.
Yeah.
Somebody who really has a difficult time learning, but when he learns, well, I say he, by the way, I just talk
Yeah,
like
fine.
he, she. When they learn, they remember what they learned. That's clearly better than somebody who learns easily, but the next day has no idea. Basically, one of them may get 60% on the test because it's hard to learn, right?
Yeah.
The other one will probably get 0 because he studied everything 100%, but the next day it's gone. Unless he studied 3 minutes before the exam. I know some people do that.
One may do well on the weekly test, but not on the quarterly exam.
Correct. That's true. And learning is for the longer term. Like it's nice to look. It's important to learn something you need to know tomorrow. By the way, some of these people may not even do well on the weekly test. They may only do
Yeah.
well on the cramming. You know, this is the cramming attitude. You know, you cram. How many people cram in the note for the exam?
Well, I I don't want to talk about it.
Okay, we won't. Now the next two are very obvious. Which are the extreme. Quick to learn and slow to forget. That's the best portion. It's that's a good situation.
Yeah, sure.
Slow to learn, but quick to forget. So it takes you a long time to learn, but then you forget it immediately. That is the worst portion. By the way, it's not saying, unlike the anger issue and the attitude about property, this is not talking about morality, because some people don't learn well. Some people have trouble learning. Some people don't have a good memory. It's just telling you how to analyze different types of students. It's it's teaching. It's telling you it's giving you some educational theory, but it's not saying the person is bad. It didn't use evil or wicked like the previous two did. There's no evil or wicked here. Some people forget quickly because they don't care. Maybe that's another attitude.
I remember years ago.
Want to tell us some school stories?
My uncle telling me something a comparable thing. He is too light for heavy work. I mean, he can't do labor. He's a thin guy. But versus he's too heavy for light work. He's a muscle-bound guy, and he can't do the sitting, hitting the book stuff.
Okay.
Too heavy for light work or too light for heavy work.
Yeah, fair enough. But everybody has to do what they're capable of.
Yeah.
But most people are capable of a fair amount, and most people who are capable of a fair amount don't quite reach their potential. Maybe this is telling us how to reach our potential. It's telling you, try to be the person who doesn't forget. And if it's going to take you longer to learn, okay. That's what it's basically said.
I'm also wondering if this century labor is devalued and intelligence analysis is greater valued. Previous centuries working on the farm, labor was more valuable and intelligence was devalued.
It is in our modern Western society, but it's to our detriment to some degree. Look, the plumber, it could be the biggest depression around. Your toilet is overflowing. You need a plumber. And he'll charge you. He'll charge you a lot. We need people who are into labor, into the trades. I think the trades are devalued now, and I think community colleges and more practical stuff. Not everybody needs a PhD or a master's
or a BA in arts.
Not everybody needs that. People need to, society. You were talking about farming.
Yeah.
If we didn't have the farmers who are getting up at 5 a.m. to plant the crops and to milk the cows, we would simply starve. Simple as that. Simple as that. I know we're a little farther removed from food these days.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
You know what I think?
Yep.
I think we should take a lunch break.
Okay.
And Owen, you should take us out for lunch, and we'll be back in a minute or two, and we will continue.
Yep.
Thank you.
Our company is committed to providing truthful, honest, competent, and result-oriented service through advising and representing our clients in Canada and overseas in a wide range of immigration matters. We focus on providing support, building dependable relationships, and promoting success. We are dedicated to understanding what results you want and to helping you understand what actions we can take on your behalf.
I bring my friend Gerald Landau and Perkiavis, the ethics of our fathers. We bring them to the table.
We're going to do a few more of the fours now. So there's four types of people who give charity. Think of a hospital drive or something, or a nice charitable drive. One who wants to give, but that others should not give. He wants to do it all himself. He wants to.
Is he a big donor?
Big donor, yeah, but he wants to do it all himself. He's capable. He's begrudging what belongs to others because it doesn't work well when you do it all yourself. Even if you're going to give 100,000 and everybody else is going to give 100,
It's a fascinating.
it's a
They're saying
fascinating
now
thing.
in politics, particularly in the States, at least to the masses, they say send in the $5s and $10s and $15 because they can build it up bigger.
It's not just the money, because it builds the commitment.
Yeah.
That's what's
Good
missing
point.
here. One who desires that others should give, but he should not give. I really want the hospital to be built, but go ahead. Everybody else do it. I'm not going to participate. He's begrudging what belongs to himself. He's taking himself out of the game. So both are not good. Although if you have to judge, I guess the person who's going to give the money is better, but it's not good. The first one may want to have his name on the whole wall.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so give him the name on the wall if that's what he wants, but let everybody participate.
That's the
Yes.
matching donation.
One who desires to give and that others should give. He wants to give, but he wants everybody else to give too. That's the pious person. Here we're talking morality again because it's not like the learning. This is a piety versus not. And one who does not give and desires that nobody else should give, that's the wicked person. That's obvious.
Yeah.
I don't need the hospital. That's all. You know what?
Yeah.
We don't need it. Let's just all, whatever. We got more important things to do than build a hospital. But it's fascinating here. The one that's most fascinating here is the one who wants to give himself but doesn't want others to give. It's saying that's not particularly good.
I can't imagine.
I'm sure the hospital might like it, but you know what? You can't exclude everybody else. You need to build. First of all, Bruce, you never know. We talk about heart attacks and things. He may not be here tomorrow.
Right.
And then what happens? Then they're finished.
Right.
They didn't build up a donor base. Finished. So you need to do it and encourage others to do it. There's
You
four.
need to spread it wide and
Yeah, that's
deep.
what it's saying. Yeah, correct. There's four types of people who go to the house of study, who go learn, who go study. This is talking about Jewish study, like the yeshivas, house of study, but it could be anything.
What's the students here?
What?
It just says students.
Yeah, four types of students.
Yeah.
One who goes but does not practice. You go to the lecture, but you're sitting there. You're not trying to do it. You don't do anything about it. You get the reward for attending because something's going to rub off. You practice, but you don't go.
What do
You're
they say?
gonna-
Marked present. He was
Yeah.
marked present.
You're going to learn, but you do it. You know what to do. You want to learn, but you're not going to go to the school. You're going to do it all yourself. You're not going to leave your house. You get a reward for practicing. You're actually doing. You're engaging in wisdom, but you're not doing it in the academic environment. You get a reward. Both of these are okay. Those are the middle grounds. If you go and practice, it's a pious person. You go, you learn, and then you apply what you're doing. You learn and you apply what you're doing, it's a pious person. But one who doesn't attend the school, doesn't learn, and doesn't practice is a wicked person. So here again we had the two middle ground ones. Somebody who doesn't learn but tries to do good deeds or tries to act properly, he gets some benefit. And the person who learns but doesn't practice it, at least he's learned and something may have rubbed
I've got such
off.
a different translation.
Let's hear what yours says.
One who goes to the study hall but does not learn gets reward for going.
Correct.
Fine.
Correct.
Okay, number 2, one who learns at home and does not go to the study hall gets reward for learning. That's very different.
Yeah,
than
it's
you.
different. Mine's talking about learning and practice. Here, the deed is the actual learning, the way you're doing it. Let's just talk about yours for a minute.
Yeah.
It's because I've heard that's the common
Yeah.
interpretation. If you go to the study hall but don't learn, something's going to rub off and you'll get something. If you learn on your own but don't go to the study hall, yes, it's good. There's a lot to learn, but you're missing out the study hall experience. By the way, these days, you don't have to go to the study hall. You just turn on the Zoom,
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
right?
yeah,
You turn on the Zoom, but it would
Yeah.
still be the same situation
Yeah.
where you're interacting. There's something with interacting. If you go to the study hall and learn, it's the best.
Yeah,
And
that's,
if you
he
do
calls it
neither-
a pious person.
Yeah, the pious. And if you do neither, you don't go to the study hall and you're not gonna learn. You're just gonna play cards all day or whatever, or play video games all day. That is the person who is improper.
He gets
So
very heavy here.
you did it a little differently. Mine
Yeah.
translated it a little differently. Again,
Yeah.
what we're seeing here is mission is open to interpretation, And here we each had a bit of a different interpretation, but I think
Yeah.
it comes out to the same type of thing.
Yeah.
Another four, now there's four type of people who sit in front of sages. And it's not
Why
going
don't you
to...
describe? Why don't you define sage?
It could be anything. It's probably talking about religious sages, but as far as I'm concerned, it could be your mathematics professor
Okay.
or your
fine.
English professor or anything. It doesn't
Okay.
matter. It's agnostic. I don't mean the word agnostic in terms of belief. It's not agnostic scientifically means it's not tied to a particular subject.
Okay. Very good. That's a great explanation.
That's the next. There are four types of people who sit among the sages: the sponge, the funnel, the strainer, and the sieve. Let's see how those work out. The sponge absorbs everything. He takes in everything he learnt. The funnel, it goes in one end and out the other. We've often heard that. That's an English expression, right? In one way, out the other way.
Yeah.
The strainer, it lets the wine out and keeps the sediment. What it's saying, when you learn something, there's always it's the good and the bad. There's always the stuff you shouldn't really be keeping and the stuff you should be keeping. So the strainer,
unbelievable.
it lets out the bad stuff, and only you remember this trivia, this stuff that really isn't important, but you don't remember the main points. And the fourth one, the sieve, which is flour, it lets out the bran. It lets out the coarse stuff, but retains the fine flour. It retains the the better things. So, again, the person who absorbs everything, you're going to overload yourself if you absorb everything. You can't remember everything you learned. Like that's the person who can spout out baseball scores from 50 years ago. I know there's people like that. If human memory is only so big. If you remember that, you aren't going to remember the important parts of life.
It's worth noting in a contemporary, my personal observation, there are many well-known, brilliant rabbis in our community who's well known that as kids they knew the hockey scores off the
Yes.
card, and to this day, if you get them privately, they'll recite hockey players' scores.
Okay, so that happens. Look, I can recite some stuff from way back as well. I remember what my teacher said years ago. I remember things that people said 50 years. I've got a memory like that. Some people have stronger memories, some not. It's just telling you in general in life, or learning in education, there's the important and the incidental. Retaining everything isn't necessarily good. Of course, in one way out the other is not going to get you
I
anywhere.
only know the sponge here as a style where there's a few smart kids and adults who they retain everything.
We use that term.
I don't know the other
But the
three.
sponge fills up. Think
you
about
think
it.
so?
Yeah, it fills up. That's what it's telling you here. It fills up. So be careful about filling up.
Okay.
And just the metaphor it's used here, it lets out the bran but retains the fine flour, is an old-fashioned metaphor because the bran, the type of bread that was better was the fine flour bread. Bran was considered the
Yeah.
stuff that you throw away. Nowadays,
Yes, the opposite.
it's the opposite in terms of what I eat. I won't eat bread with fine flour anymore.
Right.
I do when I have to, but we for the Sabbath where we get a nice challah. I've got I try to watch my health because I've had my
Yeah.
own challenges. I asked my wife to buy me the whole wheat stuff with the bran. But
Or multigrain.
the multigrains even that has a lot of fine flour. I actually like the pure whole wheat stuff. So it's changed because of modern health. But the metaphor still is that the bran is the husks, the stuff that you should be casting out, and the fine flour is the stuff.
I understand how the funnel is the opposite of the sponge. I got that.
Okay.
The strainer.
There's two types of strainers. It's talking about a strainer of. It's talking about the strainer deals
You
with
retain
wine.
the bad information.
No, but the wine stuff, when you have you've made wine, haven't you?
Yeah.
What happens?
It's
You put it.
mud,
through-
it's mud.
The sediment stays. It's saying the. It's talking. Of course,
No,
the
I
stuff's
don't mean
going to
the
a
metaphor.
barrel.
I don't mean the metaphor. I'm trying to think of someone who only retains what bad information. Only.
It's
I
not
don't-
bad information. It means the trivia. If you retain the trivia but forget the main stuff, you're gonna be lost.
Okay, I don't relate.
You don't relate
that
to it.
one. Yeah,
Whereas
yeah.
retaining the good stuff and being
I
able to
relate to
sift,
that, yeah.
you have to. I think it's also telling you have to process what you're learning. Just absorbing everything without doing some of your own processing is not necessarily good. You have to learn how to process also. There's other parts of Pirkei Avot which we won't have time for today, which talk about different types of sages. One was called a pitched pit, like a pit with pitch which doesn't lose a drop.
A thing in the ground? Oh,
Yeah, the thing in the ground.
peach.
A pitched,
Pit in
like
the
with
ground?
tarred pit in the ground, which doesn't lose a drop. And then somebody else was like an overflowing wellspring. The one person is just absorbing facts and facts and facts and facts, and doesn't let anything out. The other one is processing and growing and increasing knowledge by thinking through it himself. That one is considered better. So it's a different way of wording this.
Is
Okay,
that what
I
we've got to
think
prepare?
we're reaching towards the end. I've got one more interesting one if we have a minute.
Do the one more, then I'll conclude, and then
Okay,
we'll wrap it up.
this is no longer the fours, but this is an interesting thing. Any love that is contingent upon a thing, when the thing is nullified, the love disappears.
Wow.
You love a beautiful woman, you're
Yeah,
married.
yeah.
Eventually, after 50 years, she might, the beauty may be different. It's, but any love that is not dependent on a thing will never disintegrate. If it's true, real love, it won't disintegrate.
What does
And it
that
gives two biblical examples. What is the love that's dependent on something? That's Amnon and Tamar. If you recognize that story in the Bible where one of King David's sons wanted to have relations with his half sister, and then after he arranged it and kind of raped her, he tossed her out and lost any interest in her. It was dependent. It was a fixation. And the love that is not dependent on anything is the love of David and Jonathan. They could have been enemies because there was the fight between their fathers, yet they had a true friendship that surpassed that. So it's teaching you a story here about love, and that love shouldn't be based on a thing, because physical beauty, physical attributes change over time and pass on over time. It's telling you that the love should be from deep down and not dependent on anything in particular. Good lesson to end
It's
on.
interesting that
What you have there?
it easily crosses the gender line. The first
Correct.
is a male-female, the second is a male-male.
Correct,
And
it
not a
it
homosexual
doesn't mean
thing.
necessarily physical. It doesn't mean sexual love necessarily. It means bonds. But it could mean loving even a thing, an idea. If it's based on something, the good example. Somebody who wants to get married because the woman is rich,
Yeah.
or the man is rich. Happens,
Yeah.
right? What happens one day and the stock market
Right,
crashes?
right.
You boot
Right.
them out, or does it survive the difficulties? That's what it means.
Right. That's a more, I don't want to say contemporary example, that's a more easily digestible example. Right.
Okay, with that, if any Jewish audience is here, I would like to wish them a happy New Year. As we say, Shana Tova, we are observing Rosh Hashanah on Monday night, a very important time for us.
Very good. You want to do 1 minute on what's Rosh Hashanah?
Rosh Hashanah is known as the Jewish New Year. It's the festival where we begin the year. It's a very serious day. We think about our purpose in life. We think about the divine. A lot of it is about God and what God expects of us. Of course, it's a prelude to the 10 days of repentance where we try to improve our ways before Yom Kippur. We have nice, interesting food. We do blow the ram's horn. It's a biblical commandment that we're supposed to blow the ram's horn. So a lot of it's going to be outside because a lot of people aren't going to the synagogue. You might hear a lot of ram's horns going on the streets on Tuesday and Wednesday this week. But yes, Rosh Hashanah is coming up, the head of the year. We observe it solemnly and not frivolously. That's probably the wisdom thing here. It's
important.
serious, but we eat good meals too. We
It's
have
important.
good meals.
I like to point out that Shana, Rosh Hashanah, Shana means year. It also means change. And the whole what's your New Year's resolution? That's an integral part. It's baked in. It's the prime part of, for me, it's the prime part of Rosh Hashanah. What are you going to do different in the coming year?
Very nice, very nice.
Let's conclude. Bruce Gilboard reads this part. You like that? We are looking to build the team. So if your church, synagogue, or book club, or any intellectual club wants to...
Or mosque.
Or mosque, thank you, wants to initiate and imitate our project, we will guide you. If you want to buy any of the books that we use, and we will mail you a copy. If you want to be a guest presenter, as Gerald is a guest presenter, or an off-camera guest, we will prepare and coach you. There's another thing that I'm playing with, another idea. The family studio gift. Let's say you get 5 members of the family, they go through a text, we help them prepare, they're captured on the video. the Family Studio gift package. And it can be multi-generational. Sponsorship program in the name of a loved one or a new baby, a confirmation, bar mitzvah, wedding, etc., etc. Last week we had over 650 views. This week, with your help, we will surpass 1,000 views. You know what that is in the YouTube universe, 1,000 views? It's nothing. But we are growing at a very seriously fast clip because when we started 10 weeks ago, we had 20 views. So help your spouse, kids, friends, colleagues, boss, and humanity writ large. Please hit the subscribe button. Please hit the share button. Ladies and gentlemen, Shana Tova Mituka. Have a sweet and happy new year. And this is Gerald Landa and Bruce Gilboard signing off. Okay.